Greetings, brothers. Now that we have the points cost change from Chapter Approved 2022, let's do a quick review of the tier lists and see if there's any major movers or shakers. So welcome to the weekly tactics video, and today we are looking at the tier list now that we have the Chapter 2022 point cost changes. So we're going to look at everything, and some people have asked me if I could break down these tier lists as well. So just going to try and simplify it. Remember, all these tier lists are available in their full form, but some of the videos are pretty long, and I will put them in the video description at the end of this video if you want to check that out. So if you're not familiar with the tier list series, then what is it? It's a series that I made with my friends that we do the 3 Grots and a Vox podcast with every week. You can find that on YouTube as well. And if you're unfamiliar with a tier list in any way, shape or form, then what it is we basically rate every single unit within each category and place it within the following tiers. So S, I guess, is seriously good, aka sanguineous tier. These units you will see spammed, 2 or 3 of them in every competitive army list, or they're also kind of auto-included in most competitive armies. A is for awesome, so these are great choices and they're definitely worthwhile picks in any competitive army. B is it's bad, but really it's not a bad choice. I guess it's kind of average, right in the middle. It can work with specific tactics, but they're not overly strong right now in the current meta. C is these units are crap, avoid them unless they're the only models that you have. And D is for dumpster. If your competitive list uses any of the models that are in the D tier, they should be the first models you replace. I guess any army list, in my opinion, if you're using D tier units, you aren't going to have a fun experience. The rules are either old or haven't been updated, and they're just not competitive at all. So when you're building a competitive list, I would say the majority of your army should be S's or A's with a sprinkle of B's. And as I said, all these videos are able to be found on the playlist on the channel, which I will link at the end of this video. So if you want to check out the playlist and view all these videos in a lot more depth, then that's something you can 100% do. So let's start with troops. So I'm going to show a picture of each of the troop list, and we'll probably flick between that and a new slide that I have made, and we're going to talk about what has landed in what tier and has there been any changes. So if we talk about troops, then Chapter Approved 2022, there was no changes, and as such, I guess nothing really adjusts. Great choices here are Infiltrators and Cursors Assault Intercessors. Okay picks are your Intercessors and Heavy Intercessors, and I guess ones to avoid right now are Tactical Marines in terms of just how effective these are on the battlefield. Let's move on to HQ next, and I've made a couple of changes from the HQ list that we made in the tier list series. Mainly, well, if we look at the points costs first. So Chaplain on a Bike has gone up 10 points and Mephiston has gone down 10 points. Adjustments to the tier list. I think the Chaplain is still very strong. Personally, I prefer the Captain on a Bike over both Dante and the Chaplain, so I've moved him ahead. Previously it was Chaplain, Dante, then the Captain on the Bike, but I think the Captain on the Bike, he's my #1 pick. I use him all the time. Tony and Mark might disagree. If there are ever a lot of changes, we'll probably redo the entire tier list videos, but because it was a handful of changes this year, I'm just going through it quickly. I don't think the point reduction of 15 points changes a lot for Mephiston. He doesn't cast very reliably, he's got no rerolls, no +1 to cast. His weapon is very swingy with D3, so I've left him where he is. And then I've actually promoted Astaroth from C to a high B, and the reason behind that is that Astaroth does have 4 damage weapon if you cast his Mantra of Strength, and he can get 7 attacks, and that will be strength 7, and it is -4 I think, and it's a 4 damage weapon. So Astaroth can actually do a lot of damage. He also helps morale with the Death Company. I don't think he's the strongest competitive pick because he is only T4 and 5 wounds, so he can get killed very, very quickly. But if you're looking for a character just deal out a lot of damage, arrive from Deep Strike, etc., then I think Astaroth can potentially be that character, so I've moved him up. What are great choices from HQ? Primaris Tetmarine, Sanguinary Priest, Captain on a Bike, Chaplain on a Bike, Commander Dante, Captain with a Jump Pack, Librarian with a Jump Pack, and Chaplain with a Jump Pack. All these are good choices. Okay picks, I guess, are Mephiston, Librarian Dreadnought, Astaroth Sanguiner, Captain and Terminator Armor, and ones to avoid are Corbolo, Lemartes, and Tycho. I don't think we see any of those picks in competitive armies, period, ever. Let's move on to elites. And again, there's been a couple of small changes to the elite section. If we start with the points cost, Death Company Intercessors have gone down 2 points per model, Death Company Marines have gone down 2 points per model, and the Redemptor has gone up 10 points. What have I changed? I've taken Close Combat Terminators from a high B to a low A, so Close Combat Terminators are now here. I think 3 wound Terminators with a 1-up save or a 0-up save and cover are actually really useful in a meta where there's so much 2 damage, and 2 damage Marines can kind of feel squishy. So I think Terminators with a 0-up save and cover or a Storm Shield are actually pretty decent, so I've moved them from B up into A. Servitors from low A to B. Servitors were very good before for scoring you points for Octarius data, which is now Nachman data, and they're not going to be nearly as effective, so they were up here in A. I've moved them down to B because they are still a unit of 4. They can still do engage on all fronts pretty effectively. What else has changed? We've taken the company veterans from high A to low A, and I guess the problem with the company veterans now is just what we said. You would need to basically have 3 of them to score engage on all fronts. You also can't perform data reliably, so I think company veterans, they are still a decent unit. They are still a bodyguard, but I think they go from high A to low A. Blade Guard veterans I've taken from high A to low A, and the reason that I've taken Blade Guard veterans is I've run Blade Guard veterans now for a long period of time, but the more I've run them, the more difficult I found them to play. I guess as more codexes have come out and there's just a lot more damage getting thrown about, I don't think Blade Guard are very survivable, even with transhumaning on them. It seems like most enemies can take out a 5-man squad in a single turn. So I've taken Blade Guard from, I think they were the 2nd highest unit, so they are now lowest in S tier. I think you can still do well with them, but I think they're much harder to play than the other ones here, which we've got Sanguinary Guard, Vanguard Veterans, and Death Company. I've also taken Shooting Terminators from a low B to a high B. Yeah, this is the Shooting Terminators here, highest B. And I think the reason I've done that is because I think you can put Chain Fists on these guys. You can arrive twice from Deep Strike with a Teleport Homer. 3 damage against vehicles can be very useful. Their bolters are actually not bad. They can Auspex scan. I've had some success with them, and I've put them in my competitive army list. I actually put them in the competitive army list where I got to the top table of the GT, and I think you can definitely make them work. So I think they're a slightly better pick than low B. I think I'm more likely to take them than Centurions and probably Servitors and maybe some of these other Dreadnoughts if I have the points. So I've moved them up. Does the 2-point reduction to Death Company make any changes, I guess I hear you ask? For Death Company Intercessors, I've said no. There's no way to get them across the battlefield without getting shot. They're only 2 wound Marines with a 6-up save, so I've left them at the bottom of B. Maybe you can make them work in some sort of edge play. Regular Death Company, I think they still are inferior to Vanguard Veterans and Sanguinary Guard because they can't fall back and they can't perform actions. At 2 points cheaper, I mean, in some ways they've moved ahead of the Blade Guard Veterans because I moved the Blade Guard Veterans down, but I don't know if Death Company Firstborn are going to be that effective. I think it's cool to use them. I think it's nice that they've gone down 2 points, but it's also worth noting that there's a map now in the new chapter approved that prevents any pre-game move. So if you get that map and you're relying on your Firstborn Death Company to do a Forlorn Fury and put pressure on, then you can't do it. So it's nice that they went down 2 points. Does it help them? Actually, not that much. Great choices for elites then. Sanguinary Guard, Vanguard Veterans, Death Company, Blade Guard Veterans, Redemptor Dreadnoughts, even though they went up 10 points. I didn't move the Redemptor, I left it where it is. I still think the Redemptor is a good model, up 10 points. I don't think it needed to go up 10 points, but maybe for some other chapters it was slightly better, but for Blood Angels it didn't need to go up 10 points. It was fine where it was. It's got a big weakness and it's got no invulnerable save, so I left it exactly where it was. Okay picks here are the Close Combat Terminators, your Ironclad Dread, your Sanctuary Ancient, maybe your Judiciar, and then ones to avoid right now. Aggressors, Reavers, Tactical Warsuits, Furioso Dreadnought, Scout, Veteran Intercessors, these things are all trash. Let's move on to Fast Attack then. And I have made a change here as well, so actually made a couple of changes in the Fast Attack. So the changes from chapter approved were the 3 Primaris speeders, the Storm Speeder, Hail Strike, Hammer Strike, Thunder Strike, all went down 10 points. What have I adjusted? I've adjusted the attack bikes from S to A, and the reason the attack bikes are no longer an A tier pick is that they no longer can score you any engage on all fronts unless you have 3 of them in a squad because they do not have the vehicle keyword. So land speeders now are going to be better for the extra 10 points you pay on the land speeder. I mean, if you think about it, you lose a Storm Bolter, you gain some movement, you gain like 2 extra wounds, and 1 extra toughness. That's probably worth the 10 points alone. So I think land speeders are better than attack bikes now. And I've taken the Storm Speeder Hail Strike, which is the DACA version, from low C to middle C, the Hammer Strike from low C to middle C, and the Storm Speeder Thunder Strike from D to low C. So the points drops on these things make them a tiny little bit better. Like, I'd say these are slightly better now than like Outriders and Scout bikes, and this is still actually probably the worst fast attack based on... They've changed the points, but they've left them at super high power level, and that makes reserving them like super difficult. I don't know why. I think they've changed the points on them 3 times now, but their power level hasn't changed, so that's an issue with them still. And also I still don't actually think they do that much damage. The Melta version, which is the Hammer Strike, is kind of my preference. If you had to pick one, I'd go for the Melta version. No one I know runs these though. Like, not even non-Blood Angels. Nobody's running these. I haven't seen these in a single game ever. I guess I should get one at some point, but I think they're slightly better than they were, but I'm still not sure you're going to see them. Good picks for fast attack then are your Inceptors, Bolters and Plasmas, Land Speeders with multi-meltas. Okay picks now, I guess, are attack bikes with multi-meltas and regular bike squads, and then ones to avoid: Outriders, ATVs. I think I wrote down all the Storm Speeders, but because they've got a point drop, maybe there's a way you could include one, but I'm still not sure. I feel like the Melta one might be okay, but the other ones, I'm not sure on those things. I'm going to leave them in C, and maybe somebody in the Discord room or in Facebook group can play one and tell me how good they think they are, but on paper they don't look very good. Because these things just got a point costs, some of my videos in the next few weeks are going to focus on these, the Storm Speeders and the Gladiators, and we're going to see if we can, we're going to do some math hammer and see if we feel like there's any value in any of these things. Alright, heavy support. And looking at heavy support, let's see what actually changed. Centurion Devastators went down 15 points. All 3 Gladiators went down 15 points. So that was the Lancer, the Reaper, and the Valiant. What I've taken the Reaper from mid-C to high-C, and what it was, this mid-C Reaper was down about here. I think it is now probably more attractive than Hellblasters and Devastators, and it does get a decent amount of DACA. If you're within half range, you get a good amount of shots. When I did it, I did a math hammer on this a few weeks ago against a Baal Predator. It wasn't performing horribly, it wasn't performing great, but now they've taken it down 15 points. That pushes its survivability per point up, so I think that the Reaper might be playable now. Again, I need to get one and try it. I'm sure I've seen someone post a picture of a Reaper in one of our Discords, so someone must have one. So let's hear people's reactions on the Reaper, but I think I never field Hellblasters because I don't think they're particularly good for Blood Angels. I hate models that kill themselves in ones, and then I also never field Devastators anymore. Even like Devastators with multi-meltas are not attractive to me. I just think other chapters can do that better than us. So maybe the Reaper is an option. It is a toughness 8 vehicle. It does get a good amount of DACA. It's reasonably costed now, because it was overcosted again. I think these have gone down 3 times in points. So I moved that up a little bit. And Centurion Devastators I've moved up 1 place from D. So they were below the Fire Strike Cannon. Now I guess at 15 points less per model, they're better than the Fire Strike Cannon, but I still placed them lower than the Lancer that's got the Melta guns and the twin las fusils. It's not las fusils. It might be las fusils, but I think it's a Gladiator Valiant. I've still got them below that. So great choices in heavy support are the Whirlwind, because of suppression fire. Las Fusel Eliminators actually were included 2 squads of them in a tournament winning list not too long ago, and Eradicators. Okay picks. I think the Gladiator Lancer might be an okay pick now. I mean, it only gets 2 shots, but it does hit on 2s, and it has gone down to sort of similar points to the Vindicator Laser Destroyer. Land Raiders, maybe, but probably not. And ones to avoid are everything else, including our beloved Baal Predator, I'm afraid. So not too much changes here in heavy support. Flyers and dedicated transports. So in terms of points costs, nothing changed. What I have changed is I have taken the Landspeeder Storm from a low B to an A, and this is purely because it's a cheap unit that can perform engage on all fronts, and we're probably going to need that more often. The Landspeeder Storm also can outflank, so if you need the ability to bring units in and do engage on all fronts, then the Landspeeder Storm is good at that, so that's why it's now moved up into A. Apart from that, there's no other changes, and it is the only great choice, I would say, in the Flyers and dedicated transports. The drop pod might be an okay pick. I mean, you could put Death Company or Company Veterans or I guess Devastators into drop pods. That might be okay. And what you need to avoid is the Storm Ravens because they're way too expensive. They're bullet magnets and they do not survive at all. So when we did the Forgeworld tier list, we did it across 2 slides, and I've kept it like that. And there has been 2 changes, and the 2 changes reflect the Strays going down 75 points, the Twin Volkite covering going up 10 points per arm. So that moves the Strayus, which I think was previously down in low B, up to high B. I actually think it's an okay tank now at 600 points. It definitely matches the Falchion and the Fellblade. I think it's actually probably better than them because of the extra wounds and void shields, and the fact that if you put the plasmas on it, you can get like 19, you would average like 19 3 damage shots. So if there's a Tech Marine there, you've got 19 shots hitting on 2s that are all decent AP and 3 damage. So I don't think we'll see loads of these, but I think it's pretty good. And the Relic Contemptor I've moved from S down to A. I still think it's good. The Volkite arms went up 10 points each. I think the meta for this now will be maybe like 1 Volkite arm and 1 Chainfist. I think that is good for Blood Angels. I think you can probably put the Cyclone on it as well, and that brings it in at 180 points. At 180 points, I guess that questions, is that a better Dreadnought than the 185 point Redemptor? The Redemptor would have 4 more wounds, but it does get profiled and doesn't have an invulnerable save. In the meta that we have right now, with so many like D3 plus 3 damage coming out, at like -4, having no invulnerable save is actually kind of problematic. So I think the Contemptor is still good, but I don't think it's an S pick anymore. I still think it's an A pick. And great choices here then. Leviathan Dreadnoughts, Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts, Vindicator Laser Destroyers, and the Terrax Siege Drill. Okay picks are the drop pods, the Strayus, the Fellblade, the Falchion, the Dreadnought drop pod, the Land Raider, Proteus, or the Achilles. I think if you're going to run a Land Raider, the Proteus is the one that I would actually run. I would run it over the regular Land Raider. Again, it has an invulnerable save, and I think it only costs 15 points more, so I think if you're going to do that, that would be way more valuable. And then the one to avoid, again, is the Hammerfall Bunker Fortification. We did include the 1 fortification in this tier list as it sits down there in the D tier with the Stormbird. So if you want to check out any of the tier lists in much more detail, then I'm going to put the playlist up above right now. Let me know in the comments down below if you were happy with what you saw in Chapter Approved 2022. Personally, I think I was looking for a few more units to get a bit of love. There's a lot of units in our codex that feel kind of redundant to me and just unbalanced in general. The example I used last week were Predator tanks against Plagueburst Crawlers just get wiped with the floor, and Plagueburst Crawlers got 15 points cheaper. Kind of leaves me a little bit flabbergasted, but it is what it is. Use the units that are in the A, B and S tier. I hope you enjoyed the video. I of course will catch you in the next one, and I'm going to say, if you want to see what a winning tournament list for Blood Angels looks like right now, I'm going to put that up here as well so you can watch that now. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next one, brothers. By the blood are we made strong. Peace.